Hello. It is your girl, Kellye A. Bowens, coming at you live. Thank you so much for tuning in to tonight's SheEO broadcast live. It is business week here in the SheEO, and per the usual, we have a special guest here for you tonight. So I hope everyone has had a great Wednesday. It is hump day. We have about 2 more days to go before the weekend. I don't know who all celebrates Halloween, but it is a holiday weekend coming up. So I know people tend to have lots of plans for Halloween, whether you're celebrating Harvest Fest or Halloween. We are closing out, our summer season and officially going into our fall season. So do me a favor, you know the drill. Go ahead and share this broadcast with your network, with some family and friends, especially any of your business besties or fellow entrepreneurs who are looking to start a podcast, maybe don't know how, don't know, the one-on-one. We're going to be talking to my good friend, my sister, Miss Loryn Wellman, on tonight on what is needed to start a podcast, kind of the one-on-one in the podcast world. Loryn is in hundreds of countries. I know she launched her podcast maybe like 2 or 3 years ago and has become very successful. So go ahead and tag someone that you know that is looking to get into the podcast arena or should be in the podcast arena. Just are great in the speaking and the broadcast in the broadcast industry, and this is something that may be good for them. So we're going to be sharing some great information on tonight. So go ahead and take about 30 seconds and share this broadcast. Hey Tab, thank you so much for checking in. We appreciate you. Good evening to you, beautiful. Tab is one of our SheEO queens, and she's actually going to be vending her candles this weekend at the SheEO brunch. So I'm going to share this with a couple of networks, and I'll encourage you all to do the same. As soon as I mute my phone. All right. Let me share this. I am super excited. It's been a minute since I've been able to talk to Loryn. She just relocated to Ohio. So look, we're going to be getting caught up and having some girl time on y'all's time. So y'all bear with us, okay? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and read Ms. Loryn's bio and then go ahead and bring her on so we can go ahead and get started. I know we are a few minutes late, so thank you all so much for your patience here. So again, tonight we have Miss Loryn Wellman, aka Loryn Denise. She is a grief advocate who uses her own experiences to create meaningful conversations around grief. After losing both of her parents to cancer before the age of 32, she became acquainted with grief very quickly and knew she was in store for a long road ahead. In her grieving journey, she noticed there was a plethora of resources on grieving the death of a loved one, but not grief as a whole. And she also noticed there was no one who looked like, sounded like, or was her age that was discussing the taboo topic. Enter this Two Shall Suck podcast, a fresh perspective on grief. Weekly episodes exploring the different avenues of grief through the eyes of a millennial. Loryn's bubbly personality, strong faith, and positive outlook on life has allowed her to create a safe space for open, candid, transparent, and raw conversations on grief like you've never heard before. This Two Shall Suck podcast discusses the different avenues of grief from a lighter perspective and is changing the discussion around it one conversation at a time. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, please help me welcome Miss Loryn Lowe to our SheEO broadcast on tonight. Welcome, Miss Loryn. Looking beautiful as always. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me here. I appreciate it.
So this will be no different as usual. We read our bios, but I love to hear from the mouth of our guest expert who you are at your core. Yes, we have our bios, but who's Loryn Lowe at her core?
Loryn Lowe is an amazing daughter. And when I say daughter, I mean a daughter of not only my parents, but a daughter of, God. I am a friend. I am a aunt. I am all of those things. Somebody's future wife. Okay.
Okay.
Uh, got to claim it. Got to see it. You got to claim it. I am someone who truly, genuinely cares about the healing of people. Someone who really wants to see the good in people and sees the good in people, and someone who wants to see people just grow and be their highest and greatest self.
Mhm.
And so, that's just the basics of who I am. I'm just a really good person. I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty solid.
You all right? You all right with me,
What I'm
Lauren?
saying? Yeah, just a little bit.
Now, Lauren and I met at in a project, a travel project, and
Is
so
that what we
many
gonna call it?
relationships. Yeah,
That's what we gonna call it on here today. Okay.
we're gonna be nice and we're gonna
Is
call it
this is
that.
this what
Okay,
interview we're
yes,
having?
ma'am.
Travel project. Got it.
Write that down.
Right. You see me talking about. Let me put that in my notes. Got
Yes,
it.
ma'am. So we gonna call it that. But I have I've had so many relationships, like still standing today, like long-term relationships, like family relationships come from that project. So even though that's gone away, relationships at their core, if they're genuine, they're going to withstand that time. It doesn't matter how you met. If it's a genuine relationship, it's gonna withhold, it's gonna sustain itself based off of what it was established on. And so many friendships were our establishment, our core is love, right? And so I love Loryn like my little sister. So proud of her, just an amazing young woman. And so we're just gonna dial it all the way back, Loryn. We're gonna dial it all the way back to bring it forward, okay?
Okay,
So we're
right.
gonna start at the origin of this Two Shall Suck podcast, because you don't just wake up and say, "Hey, I want to do a grief podcast," without you experiencing some level of grief. And I don't know how you're sitting here in your right mind, right? I know how, but I'm just saying the average person
Mm-hmm.
would not be sitting here before me on a national platform sharing what you've gone through. Even it could be still be raw. This is still raw for you. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
for
And
sure.
so I know what it is. It's nothing but God who sustains you, I'm sure, daily. But listen, hats off to you. You would inspire me. You push through life, like you kick life's ass like daily, and keep
Have
going,
to.
and you make
Yeah.
it about everybody else and not about you. And so I applaud you. I honor you for that. You inspire, you motivate me for that reason. And even the reason you were even in Ohio
Gonna get me
is,
teary eyed.
if you want, we'll talk about that too. But
Yeah.
man,
Yeah, we can
look at
share.
all those are the layers of Loryn. Loryn Lowe. Lauren, we call Loryn Lowe. Look out.
Yeah.
Lolo. Okay.
Lolo.
Lolo, look at all the layers that I've even spoke on in these 30 seconds. Wow. At what age?
I just turned 34 last week.
Right. Wow. Wow. So we'll dial it all back to go forward. So tell
Yeah.
me how this all started.
So in 2015, I lost my mom to breast cancer. And then 4 years later, in 2019, lost my dad to bladder cancer. So I can't confidently say that I processed my grief when my mom passed, because I was just kind of going and going and going. I was a flight attendant, I was just doing stuff, right? I was coping with my grief. I wasn't managing it,
Mhm.
right? And I never processed it for real. And so then when my dad passed, I got acquainted with grief very quickly because, as you can imagine, it was overloaded all at one time.
Yeah.
He passed away at the end of August. So then the holidays were coming up, right? So there was a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings, a lot of things happening that I didn't understand, didn't know how to feel, didn't know how to process. And so, started going to therapy, started working through that, really had a great support system. You were there, girl. Listen, say something. Kellye made this amazing pasta. We ain't gonna get to it. It was delicious. Okay. But
Insert
just
commercial.
insert commercial. Hire Kellye, cause baby, that pasta banging. So I just had an amazing support system, amazing friends, even in the midst of me being like, God, I don't have anything to say to you. I'm not mad at you. I just don't have anything to say.
Mhm.
Because what do you want me to say when two
And that's
seconds ago I
fair.
was down here crying
Yeah.
on my face, begging you to keep my dad alive, and a week later he died, right? So I don't
Mm.
have anything. We don't have anything to talk. Me and you, we ain't got nothing to talk about right now. But in the midst of that, he still kept me. So I say all that to say that, once I started like working through it, I realized, you know, as I'm looking at all these resources and looking for things, there was a lot of resources on, and I don't even want to say a lot, but there was resources on losing someone, like
Mhm.
like literally the death of someone. But then I started noticing there wasn't a lot of resources on just grief as a whole. Like, why are we not talking about grief when losing a friend, or grief when losing a pet, or a job, or this pandemic that's happened? Like, why are we not talking about that? And then on the other side of it, there was no one who looked like me, no one who sounded like me. There was no safe space for like us to talk, right? And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do events because that's my background. I have look, I can't even say it. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in hospitality. I have years of experience in event planning. So I was like, cool, I'm gonna create some events around grief. Right. I'm
Mhm.
gonna have life insurance people come in. We're gonna talk about, grief counseling. Like, I'm gonna create these events to bring more people
Yeah.
aware of this space of grief. But God, he's funny. So one night, 3:30 in the morning, this is the middle, like right in the middle of the pandemic, like March. Okay. So this is right when it's gearing up. He wakes me up at 3:30 in the morning and is like, yo, I need you to write. And I'm like, yeah, I'm tired. I don't, let's have a conversation later. He's like, I need you to write. And literally, like, I just started writing all of these topics on grief. I started looking up grief podcasts. I started just doing all this stuff at 3:30 in the morning.
Mm.
So that very next day, I called my producer, Mike Six. Shout out to Mike. I called him and I was like, Mike, this is what I want to do. This is my idea. He was like, all right. And so, he told me what to get. We worked through some names. We came up with This Too Shall Suck. And a month later, I launched This Too Shall Suck podcast in
Wow.
April of 2020. And it's just been amazing. It's been an amazing journey. We just crossed the 8,500 downloads. We have 34 episodes. We're in 41 countries. So it's just been, I was just telling Kellye, like, I'm about to work with this brand, like I've been like super hype about. So it's been nothing but a God filled purpose, and God turning my pain into a purpose, and taking
Yeah.
someone who was broken to go and help others who are broken, who need that healing, who feel
Yeah.
like they're alone and they need that space. So it's honestly been absolutely amazing. And I'm just grateful that, God gave me the gift, because, like
Yeah.
it says in the good word, like he gonna give you the gift, it's gonna make room. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that's what
Absolutely.
it, and that's
Absolutely.
literally what he's been doing. Cause I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's good that you said that, Loryn, because we can't stop life from happening. You know, if you could have kept your mom and dad here, they'd be here today, right? So
for
some
sure.
things are out of our control.
For sure.
However, when those things happen, we have two options, right? Either we gonna fold and go under a rock and hide for the rest of our life, right? Or we're gonna ask God, God, what am I to get from this? Like, because God always is always gonna get the glory, even in death. God is
That's
gonna
right.
get the glory. Even in death, your mom and your dad are healed. And even in death, God has it for something for us who are left to grieve on earth, right?
That's right. That's right.
So, again, just the inspiration of you opening yourself up. God, what will you have for me? Because you can still be, I'm grieving. I ain't trying to do no podcast. I'm not trying, I don't even want to talk about this right now. I don't even want
Mm-hmm.
to talk about it because it's too raw. I don't want this scab ripped off,
Yep.
every time I open my mouth and talk about it on this weekly podcast. So again, it just tells to the strength that you have. And I know it's God-given strength, right? Because at our core, look, we fragile. We ain't nothing, right?
I ain't got nothing.
But it's the God-given strength in you that you have literally turned this into a resource. You've turned it into you walking out your purpose. Because did you know your purpose prior to this?
I can't confidently say that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Can't confidently
So
say that.
it's typically out. And I just read something today that says Our scar tissue is X amount of times stronger than our regular tissue for a reason, right?
Mm.
And we, even in our choices, we just can't lay down and die, because we can't. And that's how the enemy, oh, I can get her with this and that. We giving him, we putting tools in his tool belt every time life happens and we fold,
That's
right?
right. That's
And
right.
so just speak to, in that moment that you were talking to God and you told God, I don't know about this, because we've all had that moment. We all came at a crossroads with God. Was like, I don't know, you may have got the wrong person on this one.
Right.
You know just what just happened, right?
You talking to me?
Right. So in the moment that you really saw what God was doing, because when we finally surrender and say yes, it's like he opens up the floodgates of resource. He opens up the floodgates of favor. He opens up the floodgates of resources for us. What was that moment for? And I'm sure you had that moment. Like, what was that moment like for you? I know what it's like
Yeah.
for me, but what was it like for you?
Yeah. So, what's funny is when he gave me the vision and he was like, "Listen, I need you to do this." I was like, "God, you have the audacity to go and tell me to help people heal when I'm healing from my own grief? Make it make sense, sir. Make it
Yeah.
make sense." But, like, my mission was and still is, if I can help one person in their grieving journey, then I've done what I needed to do. And so I think coming from it from that perspective has allowed me to have that moment over and over and over and over again. Anytime someone sends me a message, I mean, people send me messages from all over the world, and I'm not even trying to be like, oh, but like seriously, people send me messages from all over the world saying like, "Hey, I found your podcast on Apple Podcast," or "Hey, I found your podcast on YouTube," or "My sister sent it to me," or you know what I'm saying? Like, just it allows me to have that moment over and over again to say like, wow, like you were just obedient, even in your space where you felt like you couldn't do anything. When you
Mm-hmm.
felt like, I just want to be over here and get my healing, because it's going to take a lot, because I don't even know what that looks like for me.
Right.
But, to say, well, you know what, Loryn, like if you sharing your story can help one person, then cool. Like whatever comes from that comes from that, and like you said, he just continued to open doors and continue to show favor and continue to just put the right people in my path and continue to show me like, listen, this is why I told you to do this, is
Yeah.
because I know that you have the authority and you have the impact and you have the presence that's going to allow people to be able to feel safe, to be able to feel seen, to be able to feel heard. And that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what grief does, is make you not feel those things. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's what I want to do, is make people feel those things. And God's like, okay, well, in order for you to do that, you have to step out and do this, because I'm
Yeah.
asking you to do that.
Yeah.
Because I know you don't feel that right now, but let me show you how I can make you feel that way. Because I'm going to
Mm.
make you feel seen. I'm going to make you feel heard. And I'm going to make you feel safe, which he has done all those things for me. And so I want others to feel the same. So yeah, girl,
Yeah.
it's just been over and over, literally over and over again.
I would imagine. And y'all, and that's something, even when you first introduced this, like into the marketplace, I'm like, no one is talking about grief.
Yes.
Everybody
Yes.
grieves, but nobody's talking about it. Like we just
Yep.
kind of go in a corner and deal with it the best way
Mm-hmm.
we can, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can't pray grief away.
Nope.
Like you have to face it head on. And again, facing it head on, you have to make those decisions, right? And
Yep.
if anyone's ever heard Loryn's podcast, I've listened to a few of her podcasts. I've never heard grief from a comedy perspective. Like he picked the right one.
Right.
And you don't want to be laughing like this is serious business, but
Right. Over here
Loryn,
crying, laughing.
he chose and gifted the right one. I'm so serious, y'all. I would definitely encourage you all. We'll give y'all her information on how to listen in to her podcast. But it is so refreshing. It is very light. It's not
Yeah.
dark at all. It
Right.
has a comedic undertone just because Loryn is who she is, right? Can't go too far away from that, right?
Can't leave it, baby. You getting you
Yes.
getting you
And
getting this all on there.
okay. So I'm sure that has played a big part in your healing. And so I want you to talk a little bit about before we hop over into kind of the starter kit for anyone looking
Come on,
to
starter kit.
start a podcast. Start a kit. Hey, you got to start somewhere. How this podcast has helped you to heal in a sense of it not hurting you versus helping others. You know what I mean? Because this could
Yeah.
hurt, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so just talk a bit about this podcast and what this would have looked like your grieving process without the podcast.
Oh goodness. What would it have looked like, to be honest? I'd have been all over the place.
Mm.
I think therapy, well, not I think I know therapy helped a lot, obviously, in that process. But like I said, I can't I thought I knew what my purpose was, but I can't confidently stand here now and say that to you, that I knew what my purpose was before, starting on this journey. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying like the podcast is my purpose. What I'm saying is that helping people heal from their grief, and helping people just be their highest self.
Yeah.
I've always had a love and affection for people. Obviously, it's why I got 2 degrees in hospitality, right? But I've always had a gift that I had to acknowledge, to see people and meet them where they're at,
Mm-hmm.
and walk with them or run with them or sit with them to where they needed to go. Like, I've always had that, but who knows what to do with that, right?
Right.
And so it's been healing for me, because you would think having the conversation about grief over and over and over again would make you sad all the time, or would make you depressed all the time, right? Because that's the stigma that grief
Yeah.
gets. And don't get me wrong, it is all those things. It is those sad moments. It is those moments of depression. It is those moments of being in a dark place, because I've had all of those moments, right? But at the core of it, like, if you look at the growth, if you look at who you become, allowing yourself to decide who you want to become. That's the beautiful thing of grief,
Mm.
is you
Mm.
get to decide who you want to become, and ain't nobody gonna check you. Ain't nobody gonna say nothing. And I'm sorry, I'm saying ain't, but this is what it is. Ain't nobody gonna, this is what it is. You know what I'm saying? But nobody is gonna look at you crazy for really changing who you are, because you
Mhm.
had a loss. You no longer have, that's no longer your normal. So now you have to create this new normal.
Right.
And who does Loryn get to be in this? Who does Kellye get to be in, outside of this loss? Are we going to be those people who are going to sit down and do that? And so it's been healing for me, because again, like, when I see people reach out and say comments like, your words were so raw, they were so beautiful, and oh, I knew we was going to be friends immediately, or it resonated with me because I lost my parents, and the way that you talked about, the experience you had in the hospital, or, so it's been healing for me to, again, make me feel and make me know that I'm not alone. Right.
Mhm.
Because that's the whole reason I started, is because I didn't have a safe space to talk about it. Because like my friends could only do so much. Right. But like,
Yeah.
they can only do so much, because they don't have that experience. They don't, they've never really had to process grief in that high of a manner.
Yeah.
Right. And so to have a platform and create that safe space, it not only creates a safe space for others, but it creates that safe space for me, which is what I need. I need safety. I
Yeah.
need to be seen. I need to be heard, right? And so by creating that for others, it's allowed me to also create that space for myself. And so that's been a healing process in itself, and a healing journey in itself. Just even the guests coming on to see how, like, there is a gnat in here. I am so sorry. But I'm like, what is that? Oh my God. So sorry.
Ruin your whole life, right? The one that.
Girl, just, how they be. Jesus. But even the guests who come on, like, seeing how vulnerable they get, because a lot of
Mm.
times, like, a lot of the guests that I have on, nobody asks them about them. They ask them about, their success, or they ask them about, whatever. They put them in this box, right? Or they see them a particular type of way, but nobody asks them about them. And
Mhm.
so it's giving me, again, the same feeling to say, like, okay, somebody cares about me. Somebody cares
Yeah.
about Loryn, just like I care about Kellye, or just like I care about, I interviewed Marquel today. Like, and like, people see all the success, but I was like, what about you? Let's talk
Yeah.
about you and the journey that you've been through, right? So that's why it's been healing, because the things that I see in other people is me. And
Yeah.
that's why it's been healing, because I see them healing and I'm healing in the same way. And so that like it's just all one big, I call it my love circle. It's just one big love
Okay.
circle. It's a big love
Absolutely.
circle.
Absolutely. And God has a way out for us in everything, in all situations, if we let him be God.
That's
You
it.
have allowed God to be God in helping you to heal.
That's it. That's
And
it.
and the fact that the healing came through you talking about it. You're talking about death. And just us as a culture, I'm going to talk about us for a second. We don't like talking about death. We don't. That's why we don't. Not one why, but one of the reasons why we don't want to talk about getting insurance, because it makes us
Mhm.
think of us
Yeah,
dying. Because how can
mortality,
you
of course.
exactly? We don't want to talk about those things, right? We don't want to talk about assets or wills because that makes us think of death.
Mhm.
I mean, we
Mhm.
really don't talk about death
We
at
don't
all.
talk about
And
it.
another
Yeah.
reason why we don't talk about like the grieving process, because it still brings us back to death.
Right. And that's the thing, like that's the whole premise is like grief is going to happen regardless, right? And it
Yes.
doesn't happen just with death. That's why I talk about so many other topics on my show, like literally so many other topics, because it
Talk about that real quick, Loryn, that grieving is not just associated with death. Talk about that
yeah,
for a second.
yeah, like I think that is the misconception that happens
Mm-hmm.
all the time, right? Is that grief only happens when you lose someone. That's false. That's a false narrative, and I want anyone who has said that to you, I want you to correct them, and I want you to stop saying it if that is what you think, because that's just not true. Grief can happen at literally any moment in your life. Like, look at this gnat. Like, I'm grieving this gnat right now. So, like, can you but you can lose a job and like you feel this
Mm.
sadness and you feel like stuck and you're like, oh my God, that's a grief. You can be sad because Kobe died. That is grief. You can lose your dog. That is
I,
grief. You
Kobe,
can
that look, Kobe, that hit.
Kobe,
Listen.
don't trigger me. You can literally like lose a friendship. People don't talk about friendship breakups enough. That's a grief. You can
Mm.
talk about this pandemic and how you've been stuck in quarantine and you've been freaked out and you've been nervous about mask and vaccine. That is a grief. All
Mm.
of those things are grief. Grief is just a feeling that's associated with a loss of something, a loss of normalcy, a loss of identity, a loss of a friendship, a loss, whatever your loss is. You can be grieving your old self as an entrepreneur coming from corporate to entrepreneurship. You could have been making six figures in corporate and then come to entrepreneurship and you're like, yo, I don't know what's happening. Okay. Insert me. Right. And so like that is a grief. Like you're grieving who you used to be. So
Mm.
like all of these things are grief because it's just losing something and now
Mhm.
having to adjust to your new
Mm.
normal. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And so that's why we Black people specifically don't like to talk about certain things, because who wants to talk about the loss of something? Well, you don't
Mm.
have to talk about the loss of it. You need to acknowledge it and process it, but also you need to talk about what is this new normal going to be, because the quicker that you talk about this loss and process it is the quicker that you're going to be able to be in this new normal and be this new person who you want to be. So you can either stay right here and hold on to it or act like it didn't happen and never really walk into that amazing new normal you're going to have, or
Wow.
you can process it and do that and walk into that amazing new normal, that new purpose of the person who you're going to be. It's up to
Yeah.
you. It's up
Yeah.
to you. It's
Yeah.
up to you.
That's good. That's
It's up to
good.
you.
So yeah, so kudos to you for that. Like you are enlightening us. Like sometimes it's just a lack of we what the Bible say, we well, for lack of knowledge,
Lack of knowledge
we uh
shall not perish. It's a
we,
perish.
we per yes.
It's a
Our people
perish.
perish for the lack of knowledge. So sometimes it's just about getting the information so that we can get an understanding. And a lot of times when we have an understanding of something, we're able to process it better.
That's
And
it.
it comes with conversation. Like we can't just keep our mouth closed, go in a corner, or fold up until it passes over, right? Let's talk about it, right?
Correct.
The more we have conversations about it, we can get it off our chest and then exchange information. So I applaud you for what you're doing. Again, I just know that I've never, and I'm 46, I've never heard grief addressed, period, and then
Yeah.
addressed in a manner that's so lighthearted to where it's not so dark. Like you want to hear
Right.
more
Yeah.
about it. Yes. So we're going to give everyone some information on how to tune into your podcast. And it would be very refreshing for those of you all who are listening or listening to the replay, because we've all experienced grief in some shape, form, or fashion. So
That's right.
let's hop over into podcast, right? So podcast is like a buzzword nowadays. And just because it's a buzzword or something that's trending doesn't mean it's meant for everybody. So we'll start there. We'll start there. Come on, Jug.
Correct.
We will start there. So, Loryn, you are our expert, and so we're coming to you. Who's a good fit for a podcast, and who is not a good fit for a podcast?
Let's start with not who is and who isn't. Okay, what I'll say about that is you're correct. Everyone does not need to start a podcast. Just like everyone doesn't need to start a business, just like everyone doesn't need to go natural, just like everyone doesn't need to do all of these things, right?
Yikes.
You don't have to hop on the trend just because it's a trend.
Yes.
Because the thing about podcasting, so to answer your question, someone who is a good fit for podcasting is someone who really has a purpose and has a voice and has a message that they know can impact others, right? So if you have some really good knowledge that you know can impact others, right? Like if you're an expert at marketing, or if you're an expert, I'm working with someone right now, she's an expert in marketing and copywriting, right? Like she has a really good knowledge and expertise and really has a desire to help people and to see people grow in their space, right? Like she is a person who is a good person for a podcast. And she also knows that the thing about podcasting is, yes, right now it's a trend because we were in the pandemic, all of these people started one, it's cool, right? But sometimes with podcasting, a lot of times with podcasting, you're not going to see that fruit on that tree. Like you're going to plant the tree, you're going to put the seed in the ground, you're going to, water, you're going to do your thing, and you're not going to see no type of, it's going to be like what is that? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what is that going to do?
Right.
And so if you're just in it for some quick, what's the word I'm looking for? Some quick, not glory, but, just like to see.
Yeah.
Right. To be seen,
yeah,
or to just talk, or you're like, oh, well, we have good conversations. Like we should start a podcast. That's cool. You can have good conversations, but you have to think about it in a sense of like, is somebody else going to think your conversations are good, or do you just think your conversations are good? Right. And then you have to, like I say, you have to look at podcasting for the long term. Is this something that you're going to want to do in the long term? Is this something that when you are tired that week and you're like, you know what, like I know I got an episode to record, are you going to feel like doing that? Are you going to fold when you don't get as many downloads on an episode, when you like, I knew that episode was good, like I didn't get that many downloads? Or are you going to promote to those 10 downloads, those 10 people that you got? Are you going to like, yeah, thank y'all for listening? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you are in it for the reasons of just trying to get money quickly, really not in it for the long, it's just something to do, like it's cool, like you can do that like as a side hustle. So let me be clear on that. So let me, like, if it's just, something to promote your business or something like that, and you're not looking at it like that, then that's cool. But like just to get in it just because everybody's doing it, because you want to get on and talk about Cardi B, like everybody's doing that. Like go to the shade room and work for them, right? Everybody's doing that. So I hope that answered your question, because I didn't want to say like who is and who isn't, but
and I've listened to a few podcasts of some acquaintances and friends, and there's no message. Like there should be a unified some sort of message that links all of your podcasts. And so just like sometimes we sing in the choir at church and we think we're ready for a solo career and try to holler at Beyonce. No, just no, right? So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to ask you these questions, because I'm not in the podcast arena, but I know that it's something trendy, and typically when things are trendy, everybody wants to do it, whether it's meant for them or not. It's something that's a trend, right? And like you said, you may want to get in it for clout, some street cred or whatever, but it's not for everybody.
Correct.
So, what are your favorite platforms for podcasts? I think you probably are. You on multiple platforms or on one specific platform for your
You
podcast?
mean listening platforms?
Yes.
So I'm on 11. I'm on 11 platforms. God, what are they? Apple, Spotify. Child, don't give me the line. Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora. So the way that it works, right, is that you get a hosting site, right? And then your hosting site is going to push out to all of these platforms that you want to be on. So that would be the Apple Podcast, that would be the Spotify, that would be the Pandoras, the
Mhm.
iHeartRadios. And so you need to get a hosting site. So right now I'm with Libsyn. I was with Anchor, but currently I'm with Libsyn. I'm actually probably going to look at somebody else because Libsyn is not doing it for me. But yeah, I'm currently on 11 platforms and then YouTube as well. Now with that one, you have to upload it yourself, which is fine. But yeah, so I guess 11 platforms is what I'm on.
Okay.
So yeah. Yeah. I don't have I love Apple Podcasts just 'cause I have an iPhone. And because I love how Apple has like the top charts and how like you can see kind of like
Yeah.
where you're at in that spectrum. But I don't think I have a favorite. I just wherever people can listen, I'm like, hey,
Right.
appreciate
Right.
it.
So
Thank
I
you.
see you have all of your like fancy headphones, your fancy microphone. So is that something that is needed, or can you like what equipment would one need if one has a voice, has all your checklists, you have a
Right.
voice, you have a message.
Message.
So if they've gone through the checklist, what are next steps?
Yeah. So, you know what's funny is this fancy microphone was like $15. This stand was maybe like 12. These headphones may have been 15, right? You don't need a lot. I think that's the misconception that a lot of these gurus are out here telling you is that you have to have a lot to create a podcast. That's not true. You can get a headphone, boom, arm, all of that set on Amazon for maybe $30, maybe $45, right? You'll need a hosting platform. So again, that's that Anchor, Libsyn, Buzzsprout, any of those, because they're going to be the ones that are going to host your podcast. And
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be the ones to distribute your podcast
Okay.
because they're like, you don't want to go out because you're going to need an RSS feed, which is basically a unique link that's going to tell these other platforms where your podcast lives to push it out to live on their platform, right?
Okay.
And so you'll need a hosting site. As far as equipment, like I said, you can get a cheap microphone from Amazon. You can get a whole bundle set on Amazon for like $30, $45. A laptop, and honestly, that's it. Like some good lighting, a ring light. I have a ring light and I have a lamp over here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really like the basics. That's what you need. And honestly, like these days, people can record on their phone. But the thing about it is, I always tell people like, yes, you can do that. But one of the biggest things that people really listen to and like really critique you on, like some of the first critiques that and I don't even say critiques, but compliments that I had on my podcast was the audio. Like, oh my
Okay.
God, like your audio sounded great. Because
Yeah.
we've all heard that podcast and it just, audio
Yes.
wise, it didn't stack up, right?
Right.
And I and I didn't have a microphone for a while. I just had like a Zoom H4n Pro, which that is something that you don't have to get. That's something that I just particularly got. But I didn't have a microphone and I was kind of like speaking really close to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned like, okay, well, if you get a microphone, like that's gonna bring the sound in. And then I have like you can get things like a pop filter. So like when you're saying your P's and like P, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's other things you can get. And you can get like I have something down here that goes around like my microphone that's almost like you're creating a studio. So in most studios they have like the foam against the wall, right?
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
have a portable one that does that shields all the sound so it's not bouncing around all over the place, right? But again, these are things that I just acquired over time. Like I'm about to
Right.
get a camera, right? But like I use my webcam right now and I record all of my episodes and like no okay, cool story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need so let me stop there because I feel like I'm about to overwhelm y'all. But yeah, that's That's the
So
basics
really
right
quick,
there.
we have about 10 minutes left. So
Oh, sorry.
so what's left? What's next for this Two Shall Suck podcast?
Just continuing to grow, continuing to help people heal, continuing to work with brands that resonate with me, resonate with my listeners, that are really going to help them and even me in my healing journey, right? Where hopefully once this pandemic figures out what it's going to do, I mean, we're getting back to it, but I do want to do some live shows as well, get out and touch the people, and really
Yeah.
have some live conversations, really creating some bigger partnerships for honoring my mom and my dad, and honoring anyone else who comes along the way, right? Just growth, just continuing
Yeah.
to grow so I can continue to help people heal. Because if I
Yeah.
can help people in 41 countries heal, imagine how many more people I can help heal, you know?
Yeah, we have some listeners chiming in. So Tamara Lunsford said, "Very good info," and thank
Oh,
you
good.
for joining in, Tamara. I know that Tamara lost her grandmother
Mm.
a couple of years ago, I believe, Tamara. And so, some things are a little tougher than others for us to overcome. So,
That's
thank you,
right.
Tamara, for joining
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, I'm
So I
sorry.
know, just as a segue, I know that we are still in the month of October, and Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and you honor your mother, Spirit of GW, every
Yeah.
year during this time. So, talk a little bit about that and how we can help to move that initiative along. I don't know if you were doing it this year or not, but tell us more about how that started and what we
Mhm.
can do to help you with that initiative.
Yeah, so the Spirit of GW started. So my mother's initials are GW, Glenda Wellman. And when she passed in March of 2015. And then in October, I was like, my birthday's in October. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I wanted to honor her in some way, and so I started this hashtag Spirit of GW challenge, where I basically started doing something kind. For someone every day in the month of October, to honor my mother, because she was such the sweetest, kindest human being who I've ever met. And so I wanted to just pass that along. So whether it was paying for somebody's meal in the drive through or leaving just a nice note on their car. So I started doing that. And then it just continued to grow. People started joining in, people started tagging me on Facebook. And so last year I actually did a fundraiser and raised funds for a local organization in Atlanta called Better Day Givings, who actually helped my mom. She's out in the community helping like breast cancer survivors, breast cancer
Mhm.
patients, their families. And then this year, I actually just completed this past Saturday a walk for my sister Lene. So as Kellye was talking about, I moved to Ohio in February of this year. Because my sister Lene was diagnosed with breast cancer, stage 1 breast cancer, in October of 2020. And so, I was like, I got to come see about my sister. And so I uprooted my life, came here to see about my sister. And so we did a breast cancer walk this past Saturday, and we raised $1,600
Yay.
for that fundraiser. Yeah, and I'm happy and grateful and honored to say that my sister is officially breast cancer free. So yes,
Yay.
girl, yes. So this year we're kind of wrapping up, but next year I'll definitely, you know, just anytime you do something kind, just think about the Spirit of GW,
Yeah.
because she
Yeah.
was a kind human, just kind human being, and just think about paying it forward. That's all I
Yeah.
ask people. It doesn't have to be in the month of October. It can be anytime,
Yes.
just pay it forward, because that's exactly what she would do.
Yeah.
So
Be kind all year, not just in the
be
month,
kind
month of
all
October.
year. That's it. Stop being mean.
Well, I am so thankful. Even when you announced it on Facebook. No, you sent us a text. I went running
Yeah.
into Javon, and I was like, because even when after I talked to you, when you initially told me what was going on, I went in there and like balled in his lap, like. And so when we received, you can't tell me nothing. I'm that friend. I'm not gonna make it any better.
Right.
Not the first 5 minutes anyway.
Right. Give me a couple minutes.
You consoling me, right?
Right. Like,
Must be the
you
other way
good,
around.
sis? You all right? You all right?
So I rushed in to tell him the good news. It really just warmed my heart. I was excited for her and I was excited for you because I know, again, you uprooted your life.
Yeah.
Again, caring for others, just selfless acts all the way around, Laura. And that's one of the reasons why I love you so much. And
I
I'm
love you.
thankful to call you my friend. I'm thankful to call you
Thank you.
call you
Emotional.
sister.
Don't get me emotional. I ain't got my good tissues in here.
I,
Okay.
and I'm so
Look, see,
proud
we
of
done got
you.
emotional. We supposed to be talking about podcasts and one-on-one. We
I
got me
know,
over here crying.
right?
Dang.
I'm so proud of you. And as I told you before, and I'll tell you publicly, like I'm I have a front row seat to where God is gonna take you in all this. Like you've laid your life and yourself on the line for your family, right? And God is a rewarder. He's not, this is not
Yeah.
something that's just he's gonna let slide or thank you, you did a good job, pat you on the back. No, he is
Right.
a rewarder. Just like we will reward our children for doing his work here in the earth. Like God is gonna reward you greatly, not just a little bit. You have a big blessing with your name on it, and we're all here for it. We are front row seats, popcorn, the whole nine,
Kellye,
the
go
whole
away.
nine, the whole nine.
Okay.
You're helping to heal a nation. No one is talking about what you're talking about. So talk about having a niche.
Talk
Like
about a
you
niche.
smashed it.
That's
Exactly.
that's what we
You
need to talk about in
smashed that.
podcast and make sure you got a good niche.
Exactly. And you're bringing light to, it's a lot of darkness in the world,
It is.
right now.
It
It's
is.
so much darkness in the world. And God's going to raise up those who will just literally just turn on the light. And so you decided to turn on the light and not sit in the darkness. You turned on your light, and God is going to illuminate you in the earth because you're going to make his name great. Not even your own. You're going to make his name great.
That's it.
Right?
That's all I'm trying to do.
Absolutely. And you are such an inspiration. And I love you so much. So tell the people how they can reach you, Miss Loryn Wellman.
Let me get my life together. Jesus. Look, I'm sorry, y'all. I know we were supposed to be talking about podcasts, and I hope I gave y'all something. My bad.
No,
I'm gonna have to come. I'm gonna have to come back.
We talking to Loryn about podcasts. So
Ooh.
we talking to Loryn about podcasts. Okay.
She said what she said.
I said what I said. Who gonna check me, baby?
Look, I was like, you need me to come back? Sis, I got you. Got you. Kellye got me over here.
So tell the people how they can reach you. How can they download your podcast?
Yeah, so my podcast, This Too Shall Suck podcast, A Fresh Perspective on Grief. That's look, Kellye got it on there. Boom. So This Too is 2O Shall Suck podcast is available on all listening platforms wherever you listen to podcasts. Or you can head to YouTube and type in This Too Shall Suck podcast is there. Or you can go to my website, This Too Shall Suck podcast.com, and you can click subscribe and it'll show you exactly where to listen. Also on social media, you can follow me. I actually have 2 pages on social media. My podcast page is at This Too Shall Suck podcast. I love doing reels. Okay. So I have a good time. Or my personal page is at Loryn Denise. And over there, I talk to you about how to start a podcast. So I am a millennial podcast coach. If you are a millennial who is looking to start a podcast around your purpose and turn those downloads into dollars, even if you don't have a large following, definitely go click my link in my bio at Loryn Denise. And I have a free purposeful podcast playbook where I'm going to give you the 3 strategies that millennials like myself and others are using to do that, to create that podcast around our purpose and turn those downloads into dollars. Or you can just go to purposefulpodcastplaybook.com and then type your name and email and you'll get it for free right there. So those are the ways you can find me. I'm pretty easy at This Too Shall Suck podcast. Purposefulpodcastplaybook.com. Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
and so yeah, I know it's long. I know it's long. But yeah, you're gonna get your free
right?
Yeah, boom.
A lot of times I can't spell. I struggle.
No, you spell right.
I'm overcoming. I'm not struggling. I'm overcoming spelling. Maybe Tamara, she's an English teacher. Maybe you can help me with that if you're still tuning in, Tamara. Help your girl out, because honey,
that was wonderful. You did great. Thank
you.
So I'm easy to find. You can go there. But yeah, I'm an open book. Send me a DM. Send me a message. I'm not that person. I'm not gonna not respond. Like, I love talking to people. So yeah, that's it. That's how they can find me. I'm easy to find, honey.
Well, again, thank you so much, Loryn, for spending your time with me on this evening. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We've given you several ways to find Loryn Denise. She's not hard to find, okay?
I'm not hard to find.
Just follow the smile. If nothing else, just follow the smile. Look.
I'm not hard to find. Oh, wait. You mean... If Jazz won, I know she is over it.
All right, guys. Well, we will be back here tomorrow at 8 o'clock talking to Miss Tabitha with a Buy Candle Co. on the unspoken thing challenges with starting a new business. Yes, it's sexy to say I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner, but it's some unspoken things that people are not talking about. So we're going to talk about the unspoken challenges of starting a new business so that you know, and so you don't have to bump your head and bust it wide open. We're going to tell you right here. So you can skip over that and go on to the next obstacle. But thank you so much, guys. We appreciate you spending your evening with us, and we will see you back here on tomorrow. Thank you again, Laura. You guys have a great evening.